Friday, Saturday streamer show here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Hit that subscribe button as you're settling in and check out our buddies at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all things March Madness. It's here, baby. It's just a couple days away. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is that ultimate game day companion. So if you've got the ticket, if you've got the team that you know is about to upset, go make some money on that. They've got the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball and March Madness to a $200,000 bracket contest to NHL to baseball. Tokyo Series starts early next week. So, Bet Online, the number one sports betting source, has you covered with odds, stats, and more on every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. Welcome to the Streaming Guide. I'm Dan Vespers at Dan Vespers on social media, Twitter to be specific, Old Man Squad over on Blue Sky. Like, rate, and subscribe. You guys know the drill by now. Let's begin. Today, Friday, is a very easy day to stream and a very difficult day to figure out who the hell to drop, because the only team that has what you'd call a quote-unquote bad schedule is the Portland Trail Blazers, but they had a bad schedule yesterday where they were off for 3 days. Today, they're still off for 2 more, but you probably abandoned ship yesterday if you were abandoning ship anyway. So that kind of pivots you into guys that are hurt, and unfortunately, there's a million of them right now. Keontae George just got ruled out for Utah with that foot thing. He's now missed 3 games in a row. Pascal Siakam just got downgraded to questionable. Donovan Mitchell's already been ruled out for tonight. Quentin Grimes got downgraded to questionable. Kristaps Porzingis might actually play finally for once. And this is just like, it's only 10:49 a.m. here on the Pacific Coast. We're going to get another 5 hours of this nonsense throughout the day. So what you kind of have to look at right now is, and like this might be your semifinal week, you got to get through the week. You're going to have to drop somebody that you really didn't want to have to drop. And that probably ends up being the player you cut today to go get a couple good games the rest of this week. And frankly, I don't know that you hold moves through the weekend because, yes, there are a couple of teams on Saturday that have a back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. It's not a total lost cause. Brooklyn, who we've obviously known about for a long time, but Milwaukee and Oklahoma City also have weekend back-to-backs, and those two teams do have a couple of players that you could drop into a schedule play. But overall, I think Friday's probably the day to do it, because if you keep waiting, you're going to get stuck with a player that's not as good as the other ones. Best schedules today. Indiana's got 5 games in 7 nights. The Lakers actually still have 5 and 7, but without the back-to-back at the front end, it's a game off and then 4 and 5 nights. Heaven help those poor Lakers, who also, of course, go 3 times in 4 nights. Miami has a back-to-back today and tomorrow. They have, I probably would argue, the second best schedule behind Indiana, because at least the Heat fringe players are mostly healthy right now. Also a 3 and 4 and a 4 and 6. And then everybody else is not quite as good, but they're sort of on the table. Minnesota, Philadelphia, Phoenix, and Utah all play today, and then Sunday, Monday, and also Wednesday. Toronto plays today. They play Sunday, Monday, but they do not play Wednesday of next week. Let's talk about who you're going to play on these teams that we've talked about as Friday targets. We'll start with Indiana because, in my opinion, they are the best spot to go. They've got 5 games in 7 nights starting today and a lot of options that are fringe-ish, but many of whom are probably kicking around on your waiver wire that you could get quite a lot out of. My favorite of the bunch is probably Andrew Nembhard, but he's also probably rostered in your league because you're going to get a nice assists and steals bump out of him, even if Tyrese Haliburton plays in all 5 of those games over the 7 days. Bennedict Mathurin is a really nice one. He's probably on some waiver wires because he was out for a while, and this time of year, if guys aren't healthy, they're going to end up on the waiver wire. Solid source of points and free throw percent. Aaron Nesmith has cooled off a little bit lately. He was a pretty good source of field goal percent, free throw percent, and steals. It's possible that he might only be a source of steals right now. And then TJ McConnell, who gets sort of lost in the shuffle, but is coming off a terrific game where he had a bunch of assists, a bunch of steals. He's a great field goal percent target out of the guard spot, if that's a category that you're really trying to win. And all 4 of those guys, I think, are pretty reasonable plays for Indiana. For the Lakers, the plays are not great. Jared Vanderbilt didn't do as much as we hoped he would yesterday. Again, you figure over still, there was 6 games in 8 days starting yesterday. 5-7 still today. You probably get enough out of Vanderbilt. You might get enough out of Dorian Finney-Smith. And then if you need threes, Dalton Knecht is definitely going to do enough over that stretch. But the options are not pretty with LA right now. I mentioned Miami as another team that I like as a target because Duncan Robinson is a very reliable source of threes. Davion Mitchell is a semi-reliable source of assists and steals. Haywood Highsmith is a not very reliable source of steals, but you at least have a couple of choices there. And you've got the back-to-back. So if you wanted to get out early, you could. You're not sort of locked into 4 days or more, which I'm still hoping you will, but you don't have to. Minnesota doesn't really have a streamer right now. Mike Conley's the closest you get, but he probably doesn't play in the back-to-back, so I don't think I would trust him as far as I could chuck him. So that moves us to Philadelphia, and Andre Drummond is questionable right now, so that one's not even really necessarily on the table. If Drummond plays, I think he's a damn good source of rebounds. I think Jared Butler is probably your play in Philly right now as an assists stream, and with other guys continually getting ruled out, I mean, there's a chance that he does more. Like if Quentin Grimes goes down with an illness here and Kelly Oubre is questionable with a knee thing, like Jared Butler might have to not only he might have to be the guy on every damn possession for that team. But even if those other guys play, we've seen enough assisting out of Butler where I feel pretty comfortable calling him one of the best assists plays on the board with a good schedule today. Couple more teams on Friday that I almost forgot about. Phoenix, Royce O'Neal is a semi-reliable source of threes and rebounds. Tyus Jones is a semi-reliable source of assists. And the reason that I throw Jones in there, even though he's not doing all that much in general, is that in the Sunday-Monday back-to-back, Bradley Beal likely sits one of those 2 games out, and that means one big game for Jones out of the next 3. So maybe Tyus is a better option if you go Tyus on Sunday. I bet Beal plays against the Lakers and sits against the Raptors. I would bet my life. So it would actually be a good game for Jones to start next week, but then Phoenix schedule isn't all that great next week anyway, so do with it at what you will. Toronto is a really interesting one. Their schedule is not the best because they only have 3 games in 4 nights, and their schedule next week is super wonky. They play Monday and Sunday next week, and they have 1 game in between. So they've got 1/5 right in the middle of the week. Super sucky. But it is still a 3-game week all rolled together. So, like, if you were willing to hold them throughout the week, you might get some pretty good scoring numbers out of A.J. Lawson. I think you get some pretty reliable rebounding numbers out of Orlando Robinson. And then, again, we already know Jakob Poeltl is out today, and Toronto's resting guys every other. When Poeltl's out, Castleton gets more center minutes, which is kind of nice. And when Scotty Barnes is out, he's getting some power forward minutes. So there's a certain measure of intrigue here with Castleton if you need, and he's passing too, rebounds, some assists and blocks. But again, I don't really know how you hold these fringe guys past Monday. That's a big ask. For Utah, Kyle Filipowski and Bryce Sensabaugh are the names on the board. I haven't heard anything about the Jazz resting their varsity dudes today, which is kind of surprising because I thought they would against the Raptors, and there's still time. But they do have a back-to-back coming up over the weekend, so you're going to get a rest game for the dudes there. It's possible that because Utah got drilled with a $100,000 fine for sitting Lauri Markkanen in a important game because he's a former All-Star, that maybe now the microscope is on Utah, and they're like, crap, we got to play our dudes. But I think most teams will still get away with resting guys on a back-to-back. It's these non-back-to-backs where I think the league has sort of turned the binoculars, the microscope on them. And so you're probably going to get varsity level play out of Utah in, I don't know, there's actually a bunch of games coming up because they got competitive games all of next week after the back-to-back and then even into the front end of the following week. So maybe not the best streams. And I've talked about this throughout the week. Like, Filipowski's a guy you're playing when you know that Walker Kessler is going to miss a ball game. So if you want to go the Filipowski route, it's probably for the Sunday-Monday back-to-back because you'll get 1 out of 2 good ones there. He's been okay in the other ones, but he's not going to blow the doors off the building until the guy in front of him is down. Saturday, we do actually have some teams to avoid now. Dallas and Orlando have particularly bad schedules. Dallas, Orlando both go 1 game in 4 days starting on Saturday, 2 games over 6 days starting on Saturday, and 3 games over 9 days. But if you're doing the math with us, and you probably figured this out, they both play on Sunday, and then the schedule actually gets terrible for those teams on Monday. The reason to do something with Dallas or Orlando this week is because you then don't have to make the move on Monday. You don't have to punt on those players at the beginning of next week if you still have a move on Saturday of this week. If you're out of moves, screw it. You just stick with them. They've got a game on Sunday. It's not the end of the world. A lot of 27 out of the 30 teams have 1 game either Saturday or Sunday, and Dallas and Orlando are 1 of 27 each. But most teams have more than 2 games next week, and that's where things get really funky for both of those clubs. So again, it's not a team I would move to, Dallas or Orlando, on Saturday. But if you needed to hold off, you could. Which kind of makes Sacramento the team, at least over the weekend, that you might be least likely to hold on to a player on. Now, a lot of this comes down to how your league is going. Like, if you're in real dire straits, you could literally drop anyone on Sacramento for a player with a back-to-back. And I know that screws up your finals week if you do advance, but you got to get there. And most head-to-head leagues that I know pay first and second place, but not third and fourth. And so if it comes down to that, you got to think about it this way. If you're screwed, if you think you're going to lose this week, and you're sitting on, crap, it could be DeMar DeRozan. It could be Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, whoever. Any of these good Kings, they don't play Saturday or Sunday. I hate this. I hate that this is a thing. But in the playoffs, if you're about to lose, you got to move over to somebody who's got a weekend back-to-back, and there are 3 teams. If you're going to lose, if you think you're going to lose your week by like 20 points, and you're sitting on a guy that doesn't play Saturday or Sunday, and if you get to the finals, you win, I don't know what your league purse is. If you're in a $100 league, it's probably like a 800-400 split or a 900-300 split or something like that. The difference between you getting a $0 and $300 feels a whole hell of a lot better than rolling the dice, most likely getting a 0 or having a slightly better chance at the 900. You got to take home cash. I hate that this is a thing, but that's the way the playoffs work. You might have to drop a really, really good player. And it sucks especially hard because the Kings have a good schedule next week and the week after. Teams to target over the weekend, as we've talked about, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Oklahoma City all have back-to-backs. OKC, unfortunately, goes into a really bad schedule after that, where they go 2 times over 6 days. So that would be my third choice there. But also, OKC might have the best streamers to pick because Brooklyn, we've already seen their weird mess all week long. Milwaukee, I mean, Gary Trent or Kevin Porter Jr. are your 2 choices. You're not going to get much more than 3s out of Trent, maybe a steal or 2. KPJ, you might get a few other stats, but he also might blow you some percentages. And then the only team we didn't mention there, because they don't go back-to-back over the weekend, is the Warriors. They go Saturday, but they do start next week with a Monday-Tuesday back-to-back, and they're the only team in the league that does that. So the Warriors are the best start to next week, and if you could sort of get out in front of that right now, that would be the, I don't know, you feel like your week is a little more locked up kind of thing, and then, you pivot to one of the players I'm about to tell you about. Let's start with Golden State, actually, because they are the least likely team for you to select if you do have a move on Saturday that you need to blow, because you're probably going to want to pick up a player that has a Saturday-Sunday back-to-back, because you're like long streaming during the regular season, you're probably more likely to again, kind of take the long game. Right now, if you're using a move on Saturday, you're using it because you probably are in dire straits. But again, like, your situation better than I do. If you're screwed, you got to pick up somebody who's got a back-to-back, and that's Brooklyn, Milwaukee, or OKC. If you're not screwed, if you've got a move to blow, you just happen to have one extra one and you're in good shape, then go Golden State. Because you probably don't gain a game, but you sure as set yourself up for a good start to next week. For the Warriors, Moses Moody is being picked up in a lot of spots. because he should be, and because we've talked about him a bunch on our game recap episodes of the show. Great free throw percent lately. He's hitting a bunch of threes. He's actually getting us some nice steals also. He's a terrific choice if you're trying to start off next week well. Buddy Hield for some threes. Jonathan Kuminga, who's floating around on some wires because he was hurt for a long time, is a pretty good pickup if you want points. My fear with Kuminga that I want to throw in as an asterisk there is he might not play in the back-to-back Monday, Tuesday. They might go easy on him there. So be cautious on the Kuminga front. Moody would be the choice there if you want to get your week off to a good start. And then Hield probably the second choice, with guys like Gary Payton the second and Quentin Post being kind of a rung or two lower on the board. If you're trying to wrap up this week and collect a bunch of stuff, your best choices probably come from OKC. Lou Dort with Jalen Williams probably out for the weekend is a pretty good source of threes and steals during that stretch, I hope. Cason Wallace is my favorite play on OKC, but he got picked up in a lot of leagues because he's a potential, he's a start in every format guy right now. So like people picked him up, myself included, that didn't mind that Oklahoma City was off for a couple of days in the middle of this week because we were just like, look, Cason's going to be so good over the weekend. I got to make sure I have him. Aaron Wiggins being the other one of the kind of three main fringe players on OKC that I would consider for that Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. Milwaukee, we talked about two of them. Taurean Prince would be the boring third option where you're probably going to get, 8 points, 4 boards, 2.5 assists. You get that twice. Maybe that's exactly what your team needed. 3 3-pointers. You know exactly what your team needs to get over the hurdle this week. That's the only reason you would pick up Prince and not one of these other guys. And then Brooklyn, we've talked about him, I think, on every single show all week long because we covered 2 shows and the Nets have had a good schedule every day or every other day all week long. Tyrese Martin has vaulted his way into the discussion. He's had a really good week for threes and scoring and some steals. Keon Johnson, I would really only trust for steals. Zaire Williams, I would really only trust for threes. And then Day'Ron Sharpe is your big man play, boards, steals, and blocks on the weekend back-to-back. And I got to think that at some point Nick Claxton is going to get a game off, but, maybe not. Maybe that Atlanta game on Sunday. Be nice if Day'Ron Sharpe could get one start. Nope. Now, maybe I shouldn't say nope. Maybe I should just say not yet. Also, we're not going to do a Sunday look ahead on today's show, but I am going to give you guys a little bit of a preview of what to look for next week, if it's your finals week. We already talked about Golden State being the best team to start the week because they have that Sunday, Monday back-to-back, but there are a bunch of teams that have really clunky schedules next week or part of next week. Atlanta is a team, if you can find a way off of the Hawks at the end of this week, they go one time over the first 5 days next week, or you could just wait until Wednesday because the Hawks play Tuesday, and then they're off for 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. The Boston Celtics have basically a 2-game over 7-day stretch starting on Sunday. That's a team you really want to abandon ship on Sunday. If you wait until Monday, you still probably want to abandon ship, but at the very latest, it would be Wednesday of next week. So if you have any fringe Celtics, get off on Sunday. We talked about that actually on some streaming shows earlier this week. The Mavericks, we talked about, have a 2-game week next week, so that one's terrible. Orlando also has a 2-game week. That is also terrible. OKC has no games Monday or Tuesday, but it's part of a 3-game week, so you could potentially hang on to those dudes for the duration, but if you wanted to get off of OKC, you would want to do that on Monday as well. Toronto, we talked about already earlier in the show. They have that super weird Monday, Thursday, Sunday week, so hold your Raptors through Monday, plan to make a move off of your Raptors on Tuesday. And then the Wizards, you probably want to make a move off of the Wizards on Tuesday also. They have 2 games the rest of the week, but they're clustered way back at Friday, Saturday. So Washington goes Monday, Friday, Saturday. Much like Atlanta, they have 3 days off in the middle of the week. And that's when you would pivot away from some of those teams. So the Warriors, the good schedule to start the week, because they're the only team that starts the week with a back-to-back. They're not the only team that starts the week with 3 games in 4 nights. Chicago has a decent start to the week because of that same thing. Indiana, it's the back of their 5 games in 7 days. The Lakers, it's the back game of their 6 games out of 8 days. The Knicks schedule revs back up. They've got 3 and 4 and also a 4-game week. Sacramento has a good start to the week as well. So there are other teams you could pivot to that get you 3 games in the first 4 days. Again, none of them has the Golden State back-to-back, where that's like the ultimate kick in the mouth to start your opponent. You want to slug them really good. You start with a couple of Warriors because you get that game's bounce. But if you're looking through Thursday, there are a few options on the board. And we'll talk more about that when we do our Sunday and Monday streamer episodes of this podcast. Letting you guys know, I might not be able to do a streaming episode on Saturday. We will, however, have a mailbag episode that airs first thing on Saturday morning. Hopefully this show covers that. If any of those players on the Saturday board get ruled out, obviously they're not the ones you're going to want to play, but you can refer back to this, or you can refer to the tweet that I just sent out that has this information in it for your Saturday streaming pleasure. Before we go, and I guess it's important to mention that this is our last ad for our pals at UnderdogFantasy.com, at least for right now, and there might be more coming up. And I hope you guys have enjoyed hanging out with them the way that I have. Just pick higher or lower on a pick'em card over at UnderdogFantasy.com, signing up today using our promo code OLDMAN, OLDMAN, for a chance to win up to 1,000 times your entry fee, depending on how many names you put on your pick'em card. You can also just click the link in the show description, but with our referral code or link, you get up to $1,000 in deposit match bonus cash and an opportunity to make one play a gimme on whatever card you so choose. So that day you don't have to do 2 names. You basically only have to do 1. UnderdogFantasy.com. I'm going to keep playing even after this partnership is over. Hopefully, again, they enjoyed their time with us and they will re-up. But, if you guys have a chance to sign up today, that might lock them in, and then we can keep doing Underdog Pick'em cards together. Because if you've been following along, we're all up a few bucks together. Yay. Who doesn't like being up? Swing. Like and subscribe. It's YouTube. That's what you got to do. iTunes, Spotify, you subscribe and you rate. I need you to do 2 out of 3 things, depending on which way you're taking in the podcast. I'm Dan Basperis again. Stay tuned for a mailbag show with my good buddy Adam King. That'll air first thing on Saturday morning. I can't promise there will be a streaming episode for Saturday. If there is, it'll be like a 9-minute ultra lightning round edition. But obviously stay tuned to my social media feeds. We'll get some other stuff out there, and we'll be doing more as well streaming-wise on Sunday. I'm Dan for Old Man Squad. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for all your help all year long. Let's keep winning. Let's get to the next round.